Hi, it's Andy, and today I'm bringing you my November wrap-up. In the month of November, I did pretty well actually, especially considering last month, and I read 13 books and DNF'd 1 book. So I'm quite happy with those numbers. It's not my best month, but it's right on the edge of like it's basically my average. So, you know, that's good. There was a time when I wouldn't read that much at all. So I'm more than happy with 13 books and 1 DNF. That's absolutely fine. I am just happy that I managed to get through the month at this point. So I am going to go over the DNF first just to get it out of the way. And I can't remember when in sequence I read it. So the book that I DNF'd was The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. I don't know if it's just because I've read so many great retellings now or what it is, but I couldn't find myself caring about any of these characters. I don't know if I wasn't getting on with the writing style, although I was speeding through it, but I just didn't care. Like, there was all these horrible things happening to these characters, and I was just like, okay. Like, it's funny because it's actually about a character who is also in the Song of Achilles, because it's before Troy and during Troy, but the place they go to before Troy, I can't remember what it's called because I have the memory of a goldfish. And this is about Briseis. And we see Briseis in Song of Achilles, and obviously it's interesting how Song of Achilles and this are very different, because in Song of Achilles, obviously we're seeing Achilles from Patroclus' view, and we're seeing the sacking of Troy and everything from Patroclus' view. And to Patroclus, Achilles is a hero. Achilles is, his best friend, his lover, his everything. And then in this, we see Briseis, who is a woman who was a queen and has been kidnapped and forced into slavery by Achilles. And so she sees Achilles very differently from how Patroclus sees Achilles. And while I like that normally, like seeing different character or the same person from different points of view, because it gives you a much more full view of them. I feel like none of these characters had personalities. She just sort of went from being like, she just sort of like flopped over and was like, yeah, well, I guess I'm a slave now. It's like, these are horrible, horrible men that have put me into slavery, but I guess I'm a slave now. Oh well. Like, it was, I don't know. It was just so flat, so unemotive. It felt like, you know, you got like a fight, flight, fawn. Is it fight, flight, fawn, freeze? This just felt very much like a fawn response. Like, she had that sort of like, she will just go along with it. So it was very much like seeing what was happening through the eyes of someone who has gone a bit numb, but not in a way that pulled me in or interested me, because I think you could make that really interesting. But there was just something about this that I just didn't care. I don't know if it's because of the Great Curse of Stone Blind that has made me dislike Greek retellings, so we're going to blame Natalie Haynes on this one, not Pat Barker. Now, onto the books that I did actually read and finish. So the first of those was A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire by Sarah Hawley. It feels like forever ago I read this. This month has been so long. Like, so long. This is the third in the something vols. I'm not even sure, I can't remember now. This is terrible. This is the third book in this series, and I absolutely loved it. I think this has been my favourite. Like, they just, I wouldn't say they continue to get better, because I think the first book, in my opinion, was better than the second, but this one was, I think, possibly my favourite. I love her characters. I love the Grumpy Sunshine dynamic that they have going on, but for this one, she's the grumpy, he is the sunshine, despite the fact that he's a werewolf. And I was talking about this before in my vlog when I was reading it, and normally when you see werewolves, you ascribe them to a certain kind of person, a certain kind of man. They're very beastly, very physical, very again, I can't think of it. I thought of it after my vlog, but I can't think of it now. But like, you're talking about like perhaps men who have jobs in manual labour. So one of the examples I used is Alcide Harvaux from the True Blood books, Suzuki Stackhouse, Southern Vampire Mysteries, however you know the series. Alcide Harvaux and his werewolves are all in construction. Like, they're all construction workers. Not that he's not intelligent, that's not what I mean, if that came across at all at any point. Alcide is exceedingly intelligent, and so is his dad, but, you know, it's that sort of working with their hands, doing manual labour, lifting heavy things, like strong man, manly man thing. Or also in the Southern Vampire Mysteries, Suki Stackhouse books, True Blood, however you know the series, we have the Werepanthers, who are a extremely isolated community of inbred wares, and they're very like, it's like she got the whole hillbilly thing and just turned it up to 11. And I feel like that end of things tends to be where werewolves tend to come from as a concept. So like there has been a study done, like somebody's done like an analysis on werewolves and the way that they're portrayed and the kind of people that they portray and the kind of stereotypes and things like that, and it's so fascinating, but I just can't articulate it very well. Whereas Ben is actually the owner of a plant emporium and he just loves gardening and plants and reading, and he wears glasses, and he's just like, he wears sweater vests, like he's not what you'd expect when you say werewolf. So he's just a soft squishy cinnamon roll. He's a soft squishy cinnamon roll, which is great. It turns the whole thing on its head. And then we have our female main character, whose name I can't remember, because of course I can't. Eleanor. And she's a vampire, and I think in this world they were born vampires, like you don't have to be made a vampire, you're born a vampire, and she's been cursed by a witch. And by the way, I figured out the whole witch thing so long before they did. Just if you've read it, you will understand it, but I've figured it out so much faster than they did, which, I mean, probably really easy to figure out, it's just blah blah blah. But yeah, she is very much like, she has been raised in a time where it was like feudal lords and sword fighting and like eating like whole turkey legs in a hall with like, so she's got that kind of attitude. It's so funny. Like just the way she speaks and the way she, like her attributes are. I love these two together. I love the storyline of like we're trying to figure out who the witch is, that because he buys a stone that has her in it, like she's trapped in the stone, and he releases her, and then they have to try and figure out how to stop her from being like attached to the stone so she can just live her life. So and to do so they need to find the witch who has cursed her, and it's a whole thing. All the while the mum of the character from the second one still causing issues for everybody, and there's that storyline going on as well. I really enjoyed this, and I cannot wait to read the next one. I really hope the next one's a bit themmy. Next, I read Another Elizabeth by Elle Mitchell. I love this so much. This book, this is indie published, so if you do read it, you need to give it a little bit of grace. There were some spelling and grammar issues some places, and I could do with a little bit of editing, I'm not going to lie. But overall story, I absolutely loved it. This is referred to as a crypt horror. And psychological crypt horror, Psychological crypt horror is what it says on the back. And this is about Elizabeth, and Elizabeth has just been diagnosed with EDS. And her body is kind of going downhill. She's getting more frequent dislocations. The pain is much worse. Her abilities are going down, etc. But the thing is, Elizabeth really wants to kill. Elizabeth wants to kill so badly that she decides she has to do it now to live her dream before the EDS kicks in enough to completely derail all of her plans. But the thing is, when you are someone with a desire to kill, it never goes right the first time. And it's never perfect the first time. And so Elizabeth kind of starts to go down a list, and she becomes a serial killer because she wants to commit the perfect murder before her body just totally does her in. And honestly, I love this so much. This was such an, like, if you want to know what it's like to live with EDS, like, minus the serial killer stuff, if you want to know what it's like to live with EDS, this is so, like, yeah, this is, like, so spot on. Obviously, Elle Mitchell has EDS, so that's obviously where that experience comes from. And part of it, which you don't really see in other novels, normally because in other novels, like, the ones I read, like a romance and stuff like that, normally the partners are very... they either go one or two ways. You either have the really crappy partner who you get rid of and then we find a love interest, or you have the love interest who's incredibly supportive. This you get a more of a realistic look at it. So Michael, I think her boyfriend's name is it says here, like, a boyfriend that loves her too much. And honestly, like, he's more upset about her being ill than she is. Like, he's constantly, like, nannying her and being overbearing, all because he cares so much. And it's just, like, that really annoying thing of, like, I can do it myself. Will you just leave me alone? If I want help, I will ask for it. And he does things like thinking he's trying to be helpful, but he's actually being really annoying. And it's just, I think everybody who has some kind of chronic illness will have met someone who is like this, who has the best of intentions and they mean well and their heart is in the right place. But by God, just leave me alone. Just let me go. Let me do myself. Let me ask for help. Like, please. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a significant other, but like, there's somebody you have met, somebody you've encountered, somebody you have had experience with who has been this annoying person. So yeah, it was really funny. It's really funny. It's really also really dynamic. Like, I really enjoyed this so much. There's so much going on, but it balances out so well. Like, she balances the way it's been written so well, so that it never feels like you lose the thread, even when it feels like you're rolling downhill. It's like that cheese thing where you run down after the cheese and suddenly you lose all your, like, grip and you just start tumbling down after the cheese. But, like, in the best way. Next up, I finally got to Bobby's pick for my 12 and 12, and that was Rambling Man, Life on the Road by Billy Connolly. I love this. I listen to the audiobook, as I always do. With these, I like listening to Billy Connolly read this because it's Billy Connolly. Did I really need to explain that? And this is all about the travels and things that he's done, the places he's been, the people he's met, and honestly, this is, again, it's just a fantastic addition to the books that he's written. I'm so excited to get to his last one, which doesn't have a audiobook, and I don't know if it's going to get an audiobook because it's an art book. Does that make sense? It literally had, like, it's called The Accidental Artist, and it's got, like, literally his, like, drawings and stuff in it, but there are little bits of text and stuff, so I don't know if they'll do an audio for that or what. But yeah, listen to Billy Connolly's biography books as they're being released. It really is like listening to him do one of his stand-up routines, because it's all the stories you've heard throughout his stand-up, throughout his career, but condensed into their, like, separate books. So this one particularly is about the travels, and there are other books that are about other specific themes. But it's all stuff you'll have heard from his stand-up and more that you won't have. This one is less... There will be stuff that was in his stand-up, but because a lot of it is about his travels, it'll be a lot of stuff you'll have seen if you watch, like, his Route 66 show, or there was other shows that he did, like TV shows, more than anything else. But again, this was just so enjoyable. I love Billy Connolly. I think he's just such a great guy. He's so open-minded, so, like, open to the world, and just wants to live and let live. And I really love listening to his stories. Next, I reread A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Get the right name this time, Andy. And yeah, I really just wanted to reread this. I saw so many people talking about it online, and I decided to watch the first season and then reread the first book. I think I might continue doing this. I forgot to put the next one on my TBR, but it's fine, because at some point I can just pick up the second book and read it and watch the second season. I love A Discovery of Witches. I just binged the series the first time I read it. I can't tell you enough how much I love this series. I love the characters, and I'm so excited to continue reading this series. But yeah, this, if you don't know by now, it's about Diana Matthew. Diana is a witch, Matthew is a vampire. It's kind of like, back in the books described it as adult Twilight, and now I can't unsee it, and she's absolutely 100% right, and I kind of hate it. This is a world where demons, vampires and witches exist, and they are all sort of intermingled with humans, but humans don't know they exist. And the creatures are not allowed to sort of intermingle with each other. The witches can be with the witches, the vampires can be with the vampires, the demons can be with the demons, but they can't intermingle between the species, or between the races. And of course, Diana and Matthew go against that. Diana finds this, or she pulls this manuscript from the Bodleian Library, where she is working on, like, research that she's doing at Oxford. She works at Yale, but she's currently at Oxford doing a paper. And and some research, and she pulls this manuscript, this alchemical manuscript, and has weird interaction with it. Now Diana doesn't use her magic, so she doesn't quite understand what's going on. And so because this freaks her out, because she doesn't like to use her magic, she sends it back. And then creatures start to sort of come around and like try and figure out what's going on because they want that manuscript. And Diana knows nothing about this, but then obviously people are there trying to get the manuscript off her and get her to recall it and things like that. And one of the creatures that comes along is Matthew. Now Matthew becomes more enamoured with Diana than the manuscript, and he then tends to protect her, and they start falling in love and the whole thing. And honestly, I'm starting to make no sense, so yeah, I love this. Next up, I read Shadow Study by Maria V. Snyder. This was the September Chronicles of Xavier Long book that we did the live show in November for. And I tell you what, I'm enjoying this series way more than I enjoyed any of the other series. This is my series. I'm so enjoying it. This picks up after the last two trilogies, obviously, and we are back to following Yelena and Valak. And yeah, at the start of this, something goes awry, obviously, and we spend the next little while trying to figure out what's going on. I don't want to spoil it too much. Like, I don't want to say anything because it'll spoil it for the other two series. If you want to know full thoughts, feel free to watch the live shows. I will tag the Chronicles of Xavier Read Along down below. And this, yeah, like I say, this follows Yelena and Valak again. So overall, the series is set in this world. There is two countries that border each other, Ixia and Sitia. And Ixia is ruled by the commander. The commander has this code of behaviour and this very military setup. So every district is a military district, and each is ruled by a general, except MD, whatever it is, that's ruled by the commander. MD6. MD6 is ruled by the commander here. I'll show you the thing. So we have Ixia and we have Sitia. And in Ixia it is also illegal to be a magician, so any magicians that are found are killed by the commander's assassin and number one advisor, Valak. And in the first book, Yelena is in the dungeons and she is in jail for killing somebody important. And when you're in the dungeons, the commander gives you a choice when the food taster dies. You can either be the next food taster or you can go to the gallows. And so Yelena thinks, I'm not going to die today, and she decides to be the food taster. And she works with Valak very closely to train her how to be the food taster. But the dad of the guy she killed, not very happy about the fact that she's still alive. And so he keeps sending people after her. And because of that, Valak then has to defend her and look after her and stuff like that. And they grow close. Like I say, in this one we follow Yelena and Valak again. Sitia, the other country, is a country that is full of magicians. So many people there have magic. Not everybody has magic. But it is a place kind of where like everybody ran away to when the commander took power, but it's always been a kind of more magical place. It is run by the magicians that the magicians keep, and there's also a council for each of the clans. I was going to say tribe, that's not quite right. So there are different clans, and it's a much more... It's so funny because one of the things I love about this series is that the way each of them is set up seems like a good idea until you put it into practice. Like the way the commander, like nobody wants to do things in Sitia the way the commander does things because they think that's too military. Like everybody having uniforms, everybody having, no free will basically is a bad thing to them because they sort of prioritise individual freedoms. However, in Sitia, homelessness and child homelessness and poverty and hunger and stuff like that run rampant. If you don't have power or money, like you're just left to the side, which doesn't occur in the commander's country because he makes sure he looks after everybody, but they don't have the free will of being able to do stuff. They can't really move up or down. They need permission for everything they do. It's so funny, they're like extremes of each other. And like, I feel like the answer is somewhere in the middle. But we're never going to get there because that's just not how the world works. But yeah, anyway, like I say, really enjoying this third series and I'm so sad because we're almost finished. Next, I reread Heartstopper again. This is volume 1, and as you can see, it's got the one with my tabs in it because I wanted to see, as I was reading it, what I had tabbed. Heartstopper, if you don't know, is about Nick and Charlie. I think we all know what Heartstopper is by now. Charlie's been outed at school as gay the year before and was severely bullied, and then the next year he is sat next to Nick and Nelson in class, and they're like registration class, I don't know what they call it. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but when I was at school it would be Reggie, like registration. This is basically just a story about Nick and Charlie and their friends, and Nick and Charlie fall in love because, as I said, Charlie was outed as gay, and Nick might not be as straight as he thinks he is. So it's also about him discovering his sexuality, and yeah, this is just fantastic and I will take no criticisms. Next up, I read Love Like Farms by Beccaandthebooks. This is the first in this series, and I'm really excited to get to the last one because I've been hearing amazing things about it since it came out. But obviously, to get to the last one, I kind of need to start with the first one. And so this is about a main character who runs a Christmas tree farm, but there are problems at the farm and things keep going wrong and the money is hemorrhaging out of the farm. And so she needs to find a way to make some revenue quickly. So she enters this competition with a influencer to get some publicity, and she wins. Or she didn't win, she gets into the final. And so the influencer is coming to the farm to see what it's like. The only problem is our main character, whose name Stella, Stella has told Evelyn, who's the influencer, that she runs the place with her boyfriend. Only thing is, Stella's single. So she asks her best friend to pretend to be her boyfriend, and they fake date. And of course, we can all see where this is going. But this one, to me, has a little bit of a... I don't know. I actually like the Friends to Lovers in this because normally I'm not a big fan of Friends to Lovers, but in this one, I actually really like it. And I also like the other characters that are around them, who the other books are probably going to be about. I know the second one is definitely about one of the characters that I meet in here. And I'm really excited to continue. This was cute. It was cosy. Yeah, not much else to say. Next up was probably the biggest surprise of the month, and that was A Fiancé Dilemma by Elena Armas. Now, I really enjoyed her first duology. So The Spanish Love Deception and The American Roommate Experiment. In fact, The American Roommate Experiment is up there in one of my favourite books. Like, I really, really enjoyed The American Roommate Experiment. I absolutely loved it. However, the first book in this duology, I don't know if it's going to be more than a duology, but the first book in this, The Long Game, I hated it. I DNF'd that thing so fast. At one point, there was... I really don't want to discuss it, but I've DNF'd the book. And I ordered this thinking it was just another Elena Armas book, because I was like, it's fine, everybody has a book, like, there's always going to be one that you're not going to like as much as the other. Not realising until I had bought this and had started reading it, that it was a follow-on from this first book, but it follows different characters, their companions. But there's information in the first one that you need to then read this one, so it took a little while for me to get on board with what was going on, but once I was there, it was fine. And this is another fake dating scenario. So we have our main character, again, name's terrible, Josie, and she needs a fake fiancé. And so Matthew, who is the best friend of the character from the first book, gets roped into this. And of course, again, it's another fake dating scenario with a little bit of a twist. And yeah, I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved the characters. I thought they were hilarious. I was so surprised. So surprised. I mean, it didn't rock my world. It was still like a 3.5 star. But compared to the first one, where I was like, I will actually lob this book into a bonfire. Like, the image that has burned into my psyche is just unforgivable. So yeah, the fact that I actually enjoyed this, it was like two different writers had written these books. Honestly, I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'm still on the fence about Leonard Martin. And then another reread, and that was The Martian by Andy Weir. It's no secret that I absolutely adore The Martian. It is one of my favourite books of all time. Mark Watney is one of my favourite characters of all time, and rereading this, even, I don't know how many times I've reread this book. I don't know how many times I've read this, but I still teared up, I still cried, I was still, like, my heart was still in my throat whenever something went wrong. I still had the whole feeling of, like, he's gonna die, oh my god, like, ah. So yeah, this just stands up so much. I absolutely love it. This is about Mark Watney, who is on a mission Ares 3, which is a Mars mission. And so on Sol 6, his team are told to abort the mission because there is a massive storm coming in that could tip their MAV, which is the vehicle they would use to get out of Mars and back to the Hermes, which will take them back to Earth. And of course, the very most important thing about going to Mars is being able to get off of Mars. So if the MAV is out of commission, that's it. They go. They get out of there as soon as possible. And so they abort the mission. But in the midst of the storm, a piece of the satellite communications dish flies off and hits Mark. And the crew assume that he is dead because his biomonitor readouts are completely gone. They can't find him. They can't see anything. The wind is coming in and they need to launch, and so at the last minute they have to give up and launch and leave without him. But unbeknownst to them, Mark is still alive. And so Mark wakes up alone on Mars, MAV gone, crew gone, no way to contact Earth, injured. And honestly, I think the first words, the literal first sentence of this book sums it up. I'm pretty much fucked. Like, yeah. So so Mark has to survive on Mars and, yeah, try and get his way back to Earth or die trying. And dear God, does he really take the die trying thing seriously? Next up, I read The Last Witch of Scotland by Philip Paris. This has actually recently won an award, a Scottish Book Award of some kind. I can't remember which one though, which is a shame. But this is set in the Scottish Highlands in 1727, and our main character, whose name I can't remember, Alia is what I've been calling her, so that's what I'm going to call her. She lost her dad to a fire, and in that fire she also burned severely her hands and feet. And so her and mum leave the area where he died and go somewhere else because they just can't stand to be there without him. Unfortunately, this is also in the midst of the witch trials, and obviously with their burnt hands and feet, a new minister comes to town, that old chestnut, and immediately starts screaming about witches when he gets there, and they are caught up in this. Also, there's the other sort of side of it where there is Jack and his troupe of performers, and they are going town to town to town, performing, making money, but they kind of get into a bit of trouble in Edinburgh, and so they have to get somewhere pretty far away pretty quickly. And so they end up in the Highlands as well, and Jack and Alia meet, and there's like an instant connection, and there's a whole found family element to this. I don't often get on with this kind of witchy book. Like, Discovery of Witches witchy book, fine. This kind of witchy book, historical, like, outside World War I and II, I'm a bit iffy with historical fictions. There are a lot of French-based ones I seem to be okay with, weirdly. But this sort of one is a bit hit or miss for me. But honestly, this was just hit after hit after hit. I absolutely loved it. No wonder it won the award. It was fantastic. The characters were fantastic. The story was great. I had this overarching feeling of menace that just, again, like, I had my heart going. I was terrified of the characters. It did what it set out to do, and honestly, if you want a good witchy book, this is a great witchy book. And also, this is based on the story of the last woman to be executed in Scotland for witchcraft, so there's also a little bit of historical, like actual true historical mixed in with it. Next up, I read one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is The Legacy of Arneson House by T.L. Hitcher. This is the fourth book in the Edinburgh Night series. I cannot praise this series enough. It is set in a sort of future dystopian Edinburgh, and it follows our main character Ropa Moyo, who is a Scottish Zimbabwean magician? Magician seems like the right word to use. So there are different forms of magic. There's magic kind of from everywhere, and Ropa herself uses Zimbabwean magic to be a ghost talker. So what she does is she makes deals with ghosts who can't move on, and she takes messages to their families, and their families, like, she negotiates with the ghosts, and then the families have to pay her for these messages, and then the ghosts can go and rest. And it's funny because Ropa sounds like this kind of, you go in expecting her to be this kind of like sweet, kind character, but my God, is she selfish and sassy and funny and absolutely determined to make money because she lives in a slum with her gran and her sister, and she just wants the best life for everybody. And even at 14 years old, she has taken on this mantle of responsibility for her family. I love Ropa so much. She's an excellent character, and the books follow her as she gets roped in, no pun intended, as she gets pulled into Scottish magic and the sort of politics and other darker things that are going on within Scottish and British magic. I absolutely love this book. This one again is the 4th book, so we are starting to see the threads of the other 3 books tying together and see how they all tie together. I did say for the first 3 that you could read them as individual books, but this is getting to the point now where you can. It really is tied together beautifully, and T.L. Hutchett is an absolute master of his craft. These books are absolutely incredible, the characters are absolutely incredible, and the ending of this book about knocked me sideways. You could have knocked me over with a feather. When I read the end of this book, I was like, I'm going to have to wait a year, probably, for the next book, and I'm not okay with that. Next, I read Night Study, and I'm very happy that I read Night Study in the month of November, because this was November's book for the Chronicles of AZebraReads. So I actually managed to read a book in the month I was meant to read it. Again, this one follows Yelena and Valak, etc. After the one before, I can't really say anything about it. This is book 8 in a series, so I can't really say much, but this book is my favourite so far. This series just keeps getting better and better, and I don't even know where we're going to go from here. Like, this is one of those books where, like, the stakes could not be higher at this point. And again, like I said with the T.L. Hutchett books, the strings, the threads are all pulling together for this one, into this one sort of crescendo of what's going to be the last book. And oh my god, I don't know if I'm ready. And finally, the last book that I read in the month of November is Identity Unknown by Patricia Cornwell. Again, we all know by now that I love Patricia Cornwell's Scarpetta series, even though I can't say her name. This is the newest Scarpetta novel. This follows Kay Scarpetta as she gets roped into a case where someone that she knows or knew is found dead in this Oz, like Wizard of Oz themed theme park, abandoned theme park at that, like literally on the Yellow Brick Road. And it appears that he was dropped from an alien craft. Like, we're getting into cryptids in this. So obviously people don't want it to get out that he was dropped from like a craft that did something, but they're like, it's not aliens. We totally don't think it's aliens, but also you cannot tell anybody. And of course this follows on from the previous one, which was Bigfoot orientated. In this one as well, it doesn't help that the guy who is found dead is also one of the people at like SETI and things like that who is trying to communicate with aliens. So like, they're like, people are going to think that he finally communicated with aliens and got abducted. Like, we really need to keep this under wraps, but also find out who killed him. And it also brings back one of the long-term standing bad guys in this. And it feels like we're building up to something. So it'll be interesting to see where the next books in this go. This is my favourite crime, thriller, mystery series. I don't like detective novels. I hate them. I just really don't like them. But these I absolutely love. I think it really is different because although it is a crime mystery thriller series, it follows a forensic pathologist, not a detective. And also you see all the different things in the labs and stuff like that. And Patricia Cornwell really knows what she's talking about because she was before a writing career kicked off, a forensic scientist. She's a qualified forensic scientist. She's done the work that she's talking about. And she also is one of the authors that, like, Marie V. Snyder does it as well. If she talks about it in her books, she's done it. Like, so a lot of the time they travel around by helicopter. Her niece Lucy flies helicopters. Patricia Cornwell learned how to fly a helicopter. The dog that Lucy has, or had previously, she has that dog. Like, she has that kind of dog. She learned to scuba dive, to do like the diving side of things like in Port Mortuary. Everything that she talks about, she either has done or has been to a place where they do it to like see it. So like the labs in which she didn't work, for example. I don't know what her speciality was. I think was it tool marks. Anyway, like spend time in Trace Lab, she'll spend time in different places to actually find out how it works, and it's so forensically accurate, and that's what I love about it. There we are. Those are the books that I read in the month of November. My computer, as you can hear, is fighting for its life. In the month of November, I was also doing the Tomes and Treasures readathon run by Gem and Smash. Again, I'll link everything down below. And honestly, like, I had a book per thing, and I knew I wasn't probably going to get to each thing because there was 20 of them. But I did not bad. I did not bad. I'm not going to lie. I'm quite proud of myself. I've not worked out to see, because you can double up and things like that, I've not worked out to see doubling up wise how I did, but 13 books out of 20, and 14 if we count the DNF. I don't know if we count the DNFs, but yeah, I'm really happy with that. I'm really happy with my reading month, and hopefully we can take some of this energy into December. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to let me know you were here but you don't want to sit and leave a comment, if you leave me something Oz-like, like Wizard of Oz-esque, in the comments to let me know you were here. This is really well timed considering Wicked's just come out. I've not seen it, but like the fact that it's a Wizard of Oz themed theme park in this book is quite creepy at the same time. Anyway, yeah, leave me an Oz type emoji in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye!